Welcome to your weekly energy exploration for the week of the 13th of December 2021. We are getting very close to the end of this year, and what a year it has been. I'm here basically to provide support and guidance and to tap into the collective energies that will allow us all to gain better insight into our emotional state of mind and how we can address our shortcomings, enforce our strengths, and put the combination and synergy of all of this into action in our life for our betterment and the betterment of others. So, hey, are you ready? What are we feeling at the moment? What an intense period of time, right? We've just had Neptune squaring Mercury, so very intense short transit where we were dealing with our illusionary concepts, our fantasies, combined with our sense of communication. This may have manifested as a sense of limitation or frustration in your communication, not necessarily in your actual ability to communicate, but more from the perspective that you may have simply not known how to communicate your perceptions, your interpretations, and we are going through a period of shifts and upheaval, so on a certain level you may have found yourself going through intense changes without there being the vocabulary to really describe those things. Additionally, we've literally just come off of what is still quite influential, that Venus-Pluto conjunction, the first of three. Also rather intense and shining a spotlight on what it is that we love, what it is that we don't love, what's changed in us, how our reference points in our own lives are limited by past experiences, by the stories that we tell or have told ourselves about who we are, and conforming and being limited by conformism or perceived necessity to conform. All of this, essentially, we have to go through in order to fine-tune figuring out what it is that makes us tick, what it is that will bring us into our most authentic selves, right? So a lot of work on the subconscious plane, but the results and rewards are not far off, if not already beginning to manifest. We'll probably continue to have some back and forth with this for some time. As we discussed last week, we have we have Venus going retrograde at the end of this week, which will give us the opportunity to sort of revisit the harsher, more dynamic lessons of the heart and to better integrate the results of the experiences that we've had over the last, let's say, 6 months, that have shaped our path without us having had the opportunity to sort of either sit back and enjoy the view or figure out how that has changed us fundamentally as people. So this will be our opportunity to do that, particularly with Venus being in Capricorn, where we have the opportunity essentially to experience where we have been rigidly structured in our emotional development. and how some of those structures just simply have not served us. That's what Pluto does. Pluto comes in and destroys what doesn't serve our continued evolution. So if anything radical has happened in your life over the last few days, weeks, it's pretty much an indication of where the universe is stepping in to help you to find a new path or some new way of looking at your life, deepening your sense of purpose, deepening your sense of faith, sometimes a crisis of faith, of the heart, can actually give us a deeper understanding of exactly what we love and what we are missing from our lives. So, what else do we have that we should talk about? Also this week, what do I have here? Mars enters Sagittarius, Mercury enters Capricorn. Mars in Sagittarius is pretty emboldened, and it's where our forward movement gets positioned with the fire of our beliefs. So there's nothing like self-belief to push us forward on our path. Again, you may have found in recent times that there was a little bit of a hesitancy to commit fully to the reality of your life or to the desired outcome in your life, because we've been going through a little bit of a self-examination internally, and Mars in Sagittarius is definitely going to take us outside of our shell and push us into hyperdrive mode. So a good time to really pay attention to where you believe in yourself. What are you good at? What do you know about yourself that is you can definitely ride into this next chapter. Mercury in Capricorn is essentially about our structured communication, how we communicate, how we choose to communicate. And I have a strong intuitive sense that this is more about what we don't say, what we don't need to say, and what we do need to say, and understanding the difference between the two, and understanding how that fits into the narrative and the constructs in our lives, whether that be the work that we do, the people with whom we work, the people that we have relationships with across the board. How do we fine-tune our communication to serve us better, and to we're sort of at a point now where we've done all of this work that essentially gives us the opportunity to never really have to get into a direct conflict with another human again, because we know better. We listen to our inner voice. We know when not to engage. We know when somebody else isn't ready to hear our version of our personal truth. So this is sort of like, it's like if you were polishing a stone. Imagine that your communication techniques are the stone, and you're polishing them. You're figuring out how to make everything shiny and attractive so that you don't actually approach things with room for antagonism or misinterpretation, or in a way that works against your own flow. Of course, we end this week with the full moon in Gemini, which is actually a really beautiful moon because it's also conjuncting, it's trining Jupiter. we're at the end of Gemini, so this is the last hurrah of the Gemini Sagittarius lunar node influence before we move towards Taurus Scorpio for the next 2 years. So this is where we receive a lot of the gifts from all of the work that we've done. Now, what are gifts? Gifts don't necessarily come to us in the shape of obvious enhancements or embellishments, but when we acknowledge our hard work, where we can acknowledge where we have been tried, where we have gone through the most difficulties, we can acknowledge that we've come through them and that we've gained from our experience. It's a choice to see something as a loss, right? I mean, if you feel that something is, you're losing at something in your life, that is a choice to frame your experience in that way, because in fact, it's an opportunity for whatever has already been there to evolve into something unknown, which can always be an improvement or a graduation point. So again, something to take into consideration in this time of seasonal giving with Christmas upon us. What is a gift to you? What are your gifts to yourself? Can you give yourself what you really want? And if you are literally incapable of giving yourself what you want, what is it that stands in your way? These are the things that the full moon can offer us, those types of insights. But generally, with this conjunct with Jupiter, with this trine with Jupiter, there is an amplification of that energy to such a degree, and it angles to all of the Aquarian themes. So how we fit into community, how we fit into a sense of interconnectedness, and how we can innovate towards interconnectedness, towards connection. We have moved into a new paradigm. You probably have started to notice this. You probably have very different people starting to take precedence in your life in terms of how you feel about people. Your heart is probably gravitating towards a different type of person. And there will be people that you can probably easily see as being no longer necessary, indispensable, or having any purpose or room for them in your life. So lots of major shifts, right, Enzo? And finally, also at the end of this week, sorry, I have to look at my notes sometimes with these things, especially busy weeks like this where there's a lot of astrology taking place. As Venus goes retrograde, we have Chiron turning direct, which is amazing because it means that we've come to the completion of an inner healing in order for us to now be empowered to heal externally, which means that our purpose in healing others, in healing our environments, in healing the world around us, that we are empowered to do that now, that we have the tools, the understanding in order to figure out how we take care of ourselves first, not selfishly, but in a way that is self-sufficient, and then we move into being able to bring our magic healing touch to others. And however that manifests in your life. We will now look at the cards to see what they have to tell us about this journey ahead. I haven't pulled any cards. All of this is live. All of this is just going with the flow. I finally got over my jet lag this week, but that's not to say that I was not challenged in terms of keeping myself rested. And I've been waking up very early every day on purpose, but it's now actually settled, and so unfortunately my ability to go to bed early at the weekend has not settled, so I've been getting not quite enough sleep at the weekend. But still, I'm feeling pretty good in general about life, and I felt the shift somewhere. I believe it was overnight, Thursday to Friday here in North America, where I woke up in the morning just feeling much lighter and much more, just with a deeper sense of faith in everything as it stands, which brings us to our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week, which is sort of perfect. Koala Spirit. Spirit has a plan. In nature, the koala moves slowly through the branches of the eucalyptus tree, leisurely chewing the leaves, reminding us that life is not a race or competition. Chasing around after every distraction can keep us from recognizing that we have all we need and that Spirit will always be there with gifts to sustain us. You are being asked to trust that by moving slowly, with faith in the abundance that is everywhere, surrendering to a power greater than yourself, you will be able to experience the manifestation of your desire. As you take your time enjoying the riches available to you right now, sitting peacefully, you begin to radiate the joy and abundance you seek. Spirit is here to help you discover happiness, pleasure, and contentment, all gifts that are yours now and in the future. Have faith and trust in Spirit's plan for you, and know that you are loved and cherished. And I will read the protection message because I know that there are people who are being tested right now. And it is always like that in Sagittarius season, especially as we get into the final, we are moving into the final decan of Sagittarius season. So it is the integration of the lessons of belief and faith and self-belief, and before we move into Capricorn, where, you know, the structures start to take hold from our beliefs, right? So good time to take inventory of all that and make sure that we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's in terms of our beliefs. Are you feeling uneasy and mistrustful of the world? Have you been hiding in a safe spot, afraid to venture out because you're convinced that life and other people will disappoint you? Koala Spirit has appeared to let you know that your faith is misplaced. The present safety you seek is already passing away, because all things are temporary and outer conditions are always changing. Find your safety by placing your faith and trust in Spirit, who will grow the abundance that is already yours. Perhaps you're acting slowly and overly cautiously because you lack faith that there is more for you out there than what you know. You may have boxed yourself into a safe place that has nothing else to give you and become so familiar with it that you have forgotten to explore. Are you feeling pessimistic and convinced that there's nothing more out there for you? Koala Spirit reminds you that self-care is meant to replenish you so that you can venture out again in faith, trusting that there is no limit to the joy Spirit wants you to experience. Be good to yourself and reconnect with Spirit to reclaim your faith in things yet unseen. Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? You're being, you know, if you are being tested or challenged, it's so that you actually wake up to receive the gifts, so that you actually acknowledge the value of the experiences that you're having, so that you can find purpose in the experiences that you're having. Because there is purpose in everything, no matter how painful or difficult or challenging or seemingly senseless something can be, or seem, should I say. Is there a card from this? Okay, well, that'll do it. All of this comes down to self-belief. This time we get self-love. The representation of higher self. Can you acknowledge higher self within you? Do you have a committed, conscious relationship to higher self? Be courageous and listen to your own advice. Your inner child, which means listening to your inner voice in the sense that you take the temperature as to what it is that you need, right? Your inner child is an aspect of the self, reminiscent of all that you have learned and experienced. Free, spontaneous, creative, and full of wonder, your inner child longs to be in a state of joy, but also requires nurturing, attention, and constant reassurance. Your inner child feels these extremes of emotion because they lack understanding of why particular circumstances have occurred. You can shift long-standing emotional patterns by working with your inner self. Resolve problems, trauma, and issues that you have found challenging and difficult to address. While you may have grown up quickly or had a limited childhood absent of opportunities and experiences, the inner child is an aspect of you that requires love and attention, even as an adult. Emotions are powerful. Like children, adults manipulate, rebel, throw tantrums, and can also put on a brave face for the sake of others. To create a symbiotic relationship, you, the parent, and your inner child must work in agreement of security, safety, acceptance, and surety. Acknowledging that you have been wounded is the first step in shifting your mind. Self-love is essential right now, as there is a child within you needing parental help and advice. Grieving for the past or circumstances that we did not understand at the time, no matter how old you were, is now necessary. Helplessness, confusion, or feeling overwhelmed can trigger childlike behavior such as tantrums, manipulation, and rebellion in an attempt to get what you want. Take the time to be playful and curious. Be courageous and learn the power of no. It will shield you from pushy people seeking to compromise your values and integrity. If you were to see the little you now, what sage advice would you give, knowing what you know today? Affirmation: I nurture the child within me. I am complete, whole, and secure. I am safe. And self-belief, very Sagittarian there, is the representation of safety within. So if you're not feeling that, how empowering to understand that only you have the power to provide that for yourself. Only you have the ability to reframe a difficult moment. Only you can bring yourself the security that you need. And caring for others comes once we are able to provide security for ourselves. And if we aren't independent, if we aren't fully committed to our self-belief, we cannot nurture and provide security for anybody else. We cannot care for somebody else. We cannot help others to heal. And we're at the very beginning of a new chapter of understanding that in our lives. So, and this keeps showing its face, so this is the result of that when we commit ourselves to self-belief and healing ourselves first and foremost to provide ourselves with security, delight, Could there be a more beautiful, peaceful image to know is the essence of what lies ahead for us? Because even in the darkest of times, we have to find delight. It's all old, guilt-based religious dogma that tells us that when one other person is suffering, that we need to suffer too, or that we feel guilt or some kind of entanglement. But what could be better than to provide ourselves with joy and happiness, not at the expense of anybody else, but as a gift to others. And that's exactly the message from Sufi wisdom that we get this week, because this is what we got. Happy life. I mean, that woman doesn't look too happy. But, she'll get there. Live a life less guarded. Someone asked Junaid, the Sufi sage, "Oh, you who is aware of the hidden mystery, how can one find the secret of happiness?" "Just by connecting with the heart," he replied. Attar is the Sufi guide of today. So just by connecting with the heart, you can find happiness. Which is an implication that if you're not happy, you're too connected to the mind, right? How do I live a happy and fulfilling life? This has been the concern of every human being on earth. To find the answer to this riddle, look around for happy people and find the secret of their happiness. By doing so, you will find out that no one is truly happy who has no love in his heart. Sufis define happiness as the perfume of the rose of love, the light shining from the candle of love, and the whisper from the sound of love. The happiness that is born of love has neither limit nor appetite to satisfy. It only comes to those who have love and share their love. Attar is guiding you to get out of your head and reach into your heart. Forget about your cares and focus on enjoyment. You don't have to chase extraordinary moments to find happiness. What you are looking for will be right in front of you if you pay attention and practice gratitude. And even when we're healing, whether we're physically healing or emotionally healing, consciously seeking to tap into happiness. The power of laughter. If you know something that makes you laugh, that could be a sitcom, that could be a comic, that could be a stand-up comedian, that could be, I don't know. Sometimes I do that. I'll watch Joan Rivers for 10 minutes in stand-up because she was funny as fuck. And, like the irreverence, go on YouTube and you want to laugh, just go look up, Joan Rivers, stand up, and I can guarantee you might feel discomfort for 5 seconds. You may even find yourself in judgment, but you will laugh, and the power of laughter is transformative. You'll feel completely different afterwards. So these are the types of things that we need to do for our betterment, and to give ourselves a fighting chance to actually see the beauty in everything, right? Okay. The cards are speaking rather intuitively right now. I'm just going with whatever they want. I'll just let them. Okay, those all came out together on the side. this face down. Nice. This, yes. Understood, understood. Okay, let's take some outcome cards. Those are the outcome cards. Well, I understand, but I need more. Yes, moving on from that Nine of Wands and... Right? Do you remember that? Last week we had that Nine of Wands energy and it was very, very potent, you know? I think that's part of what all this is about. It's coming to that understanding that, you know, we choose whether or not we get stuck in Nine of Wands energy, right? And a tower comes along to break that, so that we're no longer, well, I'll get into all of that, but sitting in expectation of things, but instead actually being in the present moment, engaged in the experience of living. Yes, I'll move over to this deck for clarifiers. Interesting all across the board. Do we have an underlying energy clarifier you'd like for us to take? Okay. Oh. Okay, I got that. Understood. Understood. Oh, good. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay, I get it. Interesting. Nice. Oh, there's that again. Okay. Well, our underlying energy, we got the Four of Cups on its side. So, Four of Cups, you can't really see it in the same way in the Botticelli deck, although there is some semblance of dissatisfaction there. But let's remember that essentially the Four of Cups is the bored-looking, disengaged person with their arms folded, looking or ignoring the cup that God is offering or universe is offering, and focusing or not focusing on the three cups that are in front of him too. So, and that's really what you can see here if you look close. There are cups around this person, and she's looking elsewhere, impervious to the divine all around her. So, has there been a little bit of that in your life? Is that what the reckoning has really been all about, is figuring out how to become re-engaged, re-inspired, to actually understand your purpose? Because that's what this energy, you know, I mean, planets are moving over the galactic center. We're in this position where, you know, in upcoming solstice energy really is a complete, it's another portal opportunity of shifting through into a different dimensionality, a different consciousness, and that is very much taking place right now. And you probably are, through the changes that are taking place in your life, you're either going to find yourself more anchored in misery or free of that, right? And we have that here. We have this clarifiers on that Four of Cups energy. We have this healing, you know, healing. Do we get stuck in the healing process, in grounding ourselves into less? A life that's more reduced, more restricted, more joyless? Do we get stuck in convention? Do we become more entrenched in the systematic processes, procedures, rules, laws, conventions? Or do we tap into our divine masculine and feminine and move this chariot of life forward into a better understanding of life, which then in turn gives us new opportunities of growth, new understandings, new inspiration, new love. A new love for what we have, but also a new love for what is possible. And we have that emerge again in our past energy, because we have the Strength card. In this Botticelli deck, you can see there's like a literal implication of man taming beast. Of course, this is not a literal interpretation of like, a beast being external. This is the beast within. And that tempering process leads us, or has led us, into a brand new playing field with no reference point, because everything has changed. And it's required an enormous healing. We get the Four of Swords appear here. And this healing requires a call to the divine. The Four of Swords can represent sickness, injury, inner crisis, mental crisis, holding within, these, so many people. I'm thinking of somebody very much in particular, that an archetypal figure that I am familiar with, where the intensity of angst and anxiety and unprocessed emotion and guilt and anger and all these unresolved issues turn into an amalgam of an external health crisis, of diminishing returns, of like a nervous system shutting down, of there being too much electricity running through the veins, and this manifests in physical format and disease, essentially, eventually. And it's that's a choice. You want to be stuck in that? By all means, do it, If you have the opportunity to meditate, you have the opportunity to practice yoga, if you're having that, when it manifests that much. I know, as a person who has had a nervous breakdown and had, anxiety my entire life, it runs deep in my family, particularly the DNA, ancestral DNA of repression and oppression and suppression and fear and draconian conformism, limitation. This kills the soul. So of course it manifests as disease, or and disease. What is disease? I'm not necessarily saying that it manifests as cancer, although it can manifest as cancer or some other form of physical disease, but it's dis-ease. Dis-ease implies that there is something that is not at ease in the body. And at these junctures in life where there's more intensity, as we age, as we, it's do you choose to buy into the diminishing returns of that? Or do you improve yourself? Do you liberate yourself? And unfortunately, we don't necessarily get the choice if we hold on to those limitations. Judgment is rebirth. So as a result of injury, illness, mental strife, whatever it may have been, crisis, on this new path, beyond healing, we are guided by the hand of God or universe, the light, whatever you want to call it, out of Three of Cups reversed. Three of Cups reversed is when we remove ourselves from communion. We remove ourselves from community. We detach from the love around us. We cocoon ourselves into a bubble of bitterness, of antagonism, of perpetuating inner mindless thought processes that don't even serve ourselves. They're just, if we're trying to justify why we're right, if we're trying to justify why our values are better than somebody else's, if we stay in judgment of somebody else, and we hold on to that with bitterness, and it manifests as anxiety and angst and imbalance and sadness and anger, all these low resonating frequencies, that's just death. That is what that is. You may be breathing, but you're dead unless you're learning to move through those things. So that's the process that this is, so that we can turn this Three of Cups upright and start building back into communion, community, communication. This is a Mercurian card in its most elevated manifestation. Reconnecting, re-embracing, or finding new outlets of joy and communion with other humans, because that's what we are here to do. If you're finding yourself like alone and in isolation, and more so, you're not living life the way that you're meant to live life, no matter what the circumstances are. You are choosing death. At the center of our reading, this comes as a challenge of ultimate truth. The Ace of Swords is here to tell us that we have to embrace this philosophy about life. We have to move beyond. These literally slipped off the top of the deck as I was talking, as if they were meant to embellish the story. We have to move beyond the egoic struggles. That's what the Five of Swords is. It's when the need to be right takes precedence over life force. The magician, you hold all of the elements. If you harness them, you can manifest them into that Ace of Swords, but also into Queen of Cups energy. The emotional all-knowingness that can be expressed with the gentleness of the mother, of the bountiful lover, the divine feminine incarnate, where the subconscious has been integrated into the experience of oneness, where there's no ego involved in the expression and manifestation of emotional balance. And this leads to us moving away from the strife and struggle of the past, no matter what that is. We have the Five of Swords, literally here, transforming into the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords is going into the great unknown. In the traditional tarot, it's manifested as these people on a boat, like moving towards the unknown, away from the disturbed water of the past, of the subconscious mind being out of alignment and causing all kinds of egoic tantrums and struggles and breakdowns of relationships and just wanting to be right at all costs. Not righteous, but right. And by whose rule book are you right? By your own? That doesn't really take you very far in life, does it? And that's fine. Again, karma, the cycle of life, is such that you will just repeat it. If not in this lifetime, in the next one. That's how it works. And we get that opportunity. And it's a choice subconsciously. We don't realize our higher self is constantly at work. And our higher self may be saying, you know what, bitch, you're not ready. So let's put you through it a little bit more, or a lot more. That's all it comes down to. Unless we let go of the ego, we're screwed. And it's a process. We're all doing it all the time. Nobody has gotten that completely under their belt, because even the holiest of holy people that go sit on, Tibetan monks sitting at the top of a mountain, they've removed themselves from the human experience. They are not the embodiment of non-egoic love. They are isolating themselves from the experience of being human, in my opinion. And at the very base of our reading, the outcome of that present energy of the combination of, moving out of the Five of Cups into the Queen of Cups energy, into the Magician energy, into the Six of Swords energy, manifests with the Ace of Pentacles, which is new opportunities in our physical life, not just financially related or materialistically related. It can be the manifestation of relationship, but with solid foundation, something that we can build upon, not just based on passion, or not just based on commonality, or commonality of restriction or whatever. It's like built on whatever these opportunities are, they're built on solid foundations on which to grow. So it's an ace. Then you've got to grow through all of the other pentacles, right? So that's beautiful. We have the Fool in our recent past, foundational energy. We have the Ace of Pentacles in our present. So that's the first step into this massive divine opportunity that came from judgment. And interestingly, in our outcome, we have 2 towers. So, I'm not taking this as disastrous, although depending on where you stand on the egoic plane, if you are still very caught up in the egoic turmoil, which we all can potentially be when faced with strife and struggle, the tower can be felt as, the burning down of our foundations, the removal of our safety. I mean, look at these images, But if we're looking at that as a liberation from something that actually, that we were in a shitty, tower to begin with, and it's time for a new one, I'd say that this is more of an internal tower, and it's actually, because there were a lot of cards came out, it was really, the emphasis was that the tower was the first card. So the tower is what feeds the drive into the future. So whatever crisis of faith, whatever crisis in your life that you've experienced, questioning what you're doing, questioning your job, questioning your choices, questioning, or maybe a physical manifestation in your life of something that brought turmoil or difficulty or illness or whatever it could be, dis-ease, imbalance. The tower brings clarity on that, and actually shifts us into more beautiful energy, because what we do is we move, as I was talking about earlier, as the cards were coming out, we move out of, because this came reversed, the Three of Wands, which is waiting for our ships to come in. We move out of that, so we no longer live in just the sense of expectation of something coming along. We are in our fullness of our Sagittarian self-belief, realized, where we have faith, we have the knowledge, we have the self-belief, that we don't have to wait for things. We don't have to focus on expectation and disappointment. We are in the present moment, acknowledging that the opportunity is right there. The Ace of Pentacles is in us every step of the way now in this energy. Everything is opportunity. Everything is positive. Everything is beautiful. You just have to frame it that way. And then in turn, we move out of the Ten of Wands, because this also came out in reverse. So that's a beautiful energy to be in, because the Ten of Wands is that graduation point from the Nine of Wands that we had last week. So we move through that. That would be being in that place of exhaustion, rather than seeing the opportunity, in being further burdened to the point excuse me, of total annihilation of inspiration and spiritual drive. This is the path to what would be the Ace of Wands. Maybe we'll get the Ace of Wands in the next reading, but that would be the implication, that we would get the Ace of Wands next. And before I pull another card on that to clarify that, we did get 2 other clarifiers on what the Tower energy came from, where it was leading to. Where we were out of alignment was in this 2 of Pentacles juggling energy. And what is the 2 of Pentacles? It's when we are, and I see this over and over again in myself, I know it's the case for most of you, trying to navigate this 3-dimensional experience and at the same time practice spiritual, on our spiritual path, it leads to this duality between the material and the spiritual. And then because so many of us have been conditioned by religiosity, that's what the Hierophant energy is. These Capricornian structures of old. Again, when we move into this next Capricorn season, after in the lead up to Christmas, in the next reading that we do, this is going to be a brand new kind of Capricornian energy for us. We're no longer going to be in the patriarchal thinking of infrastructure as hierarchy. We will be moving into trying to start to develop structures and belief systems that are egalitarian, that are built on love, that are built on things that allow us to grow and to feel inspired and to feel purposeful. That's what I'm getting. And we had to move out of that 2 of Pentacles energy. So that's part of this process, that Ace of Pentacles that we saw at the center of our reading, moving beyond the 5 of Swords egoic struggles and being emotionally honest and empowered in the divine feminine, allows us to drop one of these pentacles and commit. That's what it is. You get the Ace of Pentacles when you commit to no longer seeing these as duality. They are one of the same. You have to live in your physical experience as a human being. That's what you're here to do. But can you allow yourself to experience it by being generous to yourself and then in turn to others? Or are you miserly with your emotions? Are you miserly? Are you caught in your ego? Your ego of the fear of being rejected, the fear of if somebody else rejects you and you're in your heart place, they're an asshole. If somebody else can't be accountable for their actions and you've given them the opportunity to have an honest, kind, open, loving narrative, they're assholes. And they haven't learned their lesson. I mean, they're assholes, yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean they're condemned to being that forever. Every soul evolves and will eventually through the karmic process. But you're allowed to acknowledge that at this very moment in time, if that's the experience you're having, that's what they are, and you don't have to deal with that shit. You go into your heart space, drop that imbalance, drop that juggling act, and just be in your self-belief. That is the purpose of the full Sagittarian resolution, is to move into Capricorn energy empowered with love and knowing that the structures that you build will be built on love. And in turn, that gives us, that is that Ace of Wands there, that the Page of Wands is holding. The Page is the youngest, most fertile and most uncorrupted, inspired energy that we can have. It's teachable, it's the student, but it's the inspired student, and it's the student with the pep in his or her stride. It's the spirit of curiosity, of passion, of joy, of everything that we talked about in this self-love card, about the inner child. So it all comes together in the end, right? Okay, I'm not going to pull any more clarifiers. I will pull one Osho Zen Tarot card and then we will be done. Ooh, okay. I said one, you gave me three. So I'm only going to read the top one, but we will acknowledge the other two that came out. because we got Four of Wands participation, so it's a celebration card, but it's also, you know, what comes after, like, you know, it's sort of the successor to that Three of Cups being turned upright, you know. And I believe our outcome card last week had something to do with the Three of Cups, where it showed up at some point. So the fact that then it came out in our past upside down means that, you know, maybe because of the other astrological energies, some curveball was thrown our way, and we didn't get into that space. So this reminds us again, move towards community, move towards love and light, move towards seeing that in other people. No matter what your ego tells you, find it, rather than withdrawing and seeing the self as being this massive entity that's more important than everything else. That's what I get from that. And we also got the Nine of Cups. Again, this is, in this particular case, interpreted and shown as like a very egoically driven card, but the Nine of Cups is also a beautiful card in the sense that it implies that, you know, in that inner child embrace, you know, sometimes we find ourselves in indulgence, or it is really comes, it's defining that line between self-sufficiency emotionally, because we've integrated our lessons emotionally and we're able to therefore be giving of ourselves, which is the Ten of Cups after that, or moving back into the Four of Cups energy as a result of that, where we're dissatisfied because we're looking for all of the answers in ourselves and we're not actually having the experience of humanity as a collective. So our actual outcome card that I will read is the flowering card, which I believe is the Queen of Pentacles. Yes. And we usually get her when we need to ground ourselves back into that sense of communion, right? So let's read the flowering card. Ow. The Queen of Rainbows is like a fantastic plant that has reached the apex of its flowering and its colors. She is very sexual, very alive, and full of possibilities. She snaps her fingers to the music of love, and her zodiac necklace is placed in a way that Venus lies over her heart. The sleeves of her garment contain an abundance of seeds, and as the wind blows, the seeds will be scattered to take root where they may. She is not concerned whether they land on the soil or on the rocks. She is just spreading them everywhere in sheer celebration of life and love. Flowers fall on her from above in harmony with her own flowering, and the waters of emotion swirl playfully beneath the flower on which she sits. You might feel like a garden of flowers right now, showered with blessings from everywhere. Welcome the bees, invite the birds to drink your nectar. Spread your joy around for all to share. Zen wants you living in abundance, living in totality, living intensely. Not at the minimum as Christianity wants you to, that's the Hierophant. But at the maximum, overflowing. Your life should reach to others. Your blissfulness, your benediction, your ecstasy should not be contained within you like a seed. It should open like a flower and spread its fragrance to all and sundry, not only to the friends, but to the strangers too. This is real compassion, this is real love, sharing your enlightenment, sharing your dance of the beyond. Well, that literally sums up everything that I've said in this reading, right? So, thank you, universe, for taking us full circle. I hope this is enlightening for you. I embrace everything about this reading because I can feel, the discomfort inside of me when I get anxious or I feel out of alignment. It really does come from Five of Swords energy, like a lot of, egoic crap, really. And it's a good reminder of that. And I will have to rewatch this video myself so that I make sure that I have a reminder of this. But a beautiful message overall. I hope that you are empowered to receive this message wholeheartedly and fully, and that it resonates on every level through everything that you do in the week to come. And I look forward to seeing you again next weekend in our pre-Christmas reading. Namaste.